Okay, so sorry for those that are online. Somebody can just write in the chat if you can hear us. We're going to get started here. We apologize for the delay. We're having audio. Okay, good. People can hear. Great. Okay. So we're going to be using my phone. So whoever's speaking, you'll be able to hear the audio and you'll see us visually on the camera. And we apologize for the closed caption. I don't know if it'll work, but if not, we will record this meeting and have it posted later. Oh, okay, closed captions working too. So,
okay, everybody, I believe we're going to get started. Good afternoon, hello. Folks on the live stream, you can still hear us? Can you hear the audio coming through still? Just let us know. I want to make sure before I continue, because we've got audio in the room, but I want to make sure you can hear us. Anybody in the chat, just let us know that you can hear this. Maybe. A little fuzzy, but yes, you know what we're taking. Good afternoon to everybody. There's lots of places that you could have chosen to be this afternoon, but we want to say thank you very much for coming and choosing to be here with us. The full room, which is so wonderful to see. My name is Desmond Cole. I'm a journalist and an activist in Toronto, and I'm really honored to have been asked to be here today to help MC this event on a day where we acknowledge police brutality and do what we can do in our communities to try and fight back against it. And to that end, this event has been organized by people, by families, individuals who have direct experience dealing with police brutality, whether themselves personally, members of their family. You're going to hear from many of those people this afternoon. And I want to say that this is obviously a very difficult subject matter, and you're going to hear some difficult stories and testimonies from people today. And I know that's hard, but it comes with the subject that we're here talking about. People are sharing their real life experiences of things that have happened to them, that have happened to their family members, that have altered the course of their life. So some of what you hear today is going to reflect that, and it's probably going to be hard to listen to, but I ask you to respect and hold space for every single person who is able to come up here and share. So it's also not easy for them to have to do that, to talk about these things and these experiences that they've been through, that they continue to live. So let's all try to make this a welcoming space for everybody who needs to come out here today and to share what they need to share. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I am not from this area, but I do know that where we are in what is called Ottawa is the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people, who for thousands of years, who for all the time really that we even have recorded history in this part of the world, were the caretakers of this land. They never gave up this land to the Crown. They never said the Crown, the country that we call Canada now, could have this land. They never signed it over in a treaty. And the reason that matters is because it's actually not enough to just get up here and to say we acknowledge that this is your land. What does that mean when Algonquin people do not control this land, cannot make decisions about resources, can't make decisions about development, but we just say we acknowledge that this is yours? We're going to keep using it how we would like to. We cannot do that. And so it's important on a day like today, it's the International Day Against Police Brutality. We have to acknowledge that it is forms of policing from back then that still exist. That was what pushed people off their land. That was what forced people who didn't actually want to be moved to be forcefully moved. That's what the Northwestern Mounted Police were for, now the RCMP, the same organization. So we have to acknowledge, when we talk about police brutality, that Indigenous peoples across these lands experienced it before we did. And we have to be in solidarity with Indigenous struggles for land and for sovereignty and for ongoing cultural practice. We have to be able to stand with people who are continuing that fight as we talk about things like police brutality. So all the organizers are now, we're going to have you come up and welcome everybody, and is that how we're doing things? Or are we going to get right to get right to it? Everybody's had something to eat. I take it that you can still come up for seconds if you've not had your fill yet. Thank you so much to all the volunteers and the organizers for feeding everybody today. It's a really, really important part of any event like this.
Can we give our volunteers any?
We should give our volunteers. That would not be possible without that support, so thank you so much. Vanessa, I think I'm going to start with you. I'd like you to be the first person to come up here today. Vanessa is from the Ottawa area and has been a victim of police violence in this city. I want you all to welcome her up here.
Oh, put it on my shirt. Is that good? And okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa. Thank you so much for coming out to this very important event. I just want to start by saying that everybody who comes up and speaks, every time we do this, we're reliving our trauma. We are making ourselves so vulnerable. We are not obligated to do this. We're doing it for the goal that we want to create awareness and we want change. I'm speaking about experiences that I never want my children, my grandchildren, or my great-grandchildren to ever have to go through or even know exist. So I just want everyone to recognize that and appreciate the work it takes to come up here and relive all these things and speak about these things and the goal that we're all trying to reach. I'm going to start with a poem that I wrote over 20 years ago. I changed it a little bit since I wrote it, but not really. I changed one verse of it. So I'm saying that because it was over 20 years ago, and it sounds like I wrote it about what's going on in our world right now, because absolutely nothing has changed. Oh. Okay. Your life's a battle, so you fought. The good life lasts forever, so you thought. Now they want to teach you a lesson, so what are you being taught? To regret the crime you committed or just regret getting caught? They throw away the key and lock you all together, but most crimes are petty, so you won't be here forever because you're reading the Bible and knitting a sweater. Are you rehabilitating yourself or just learning to commit crime better? Can you leave here with the peace of mind to get your life together, or will you leave here with a new partner in crime in jail where you met her? They have you labeled as a criminal, so nothing really matters. You're a badass before your ass is just getting badder. They got you sleeping on the floor, cold metal benches, looking out the window of barbed wire fences. It just makes you want to commit more violent offenses. Our system is so failed. You get arrested selling drugs just once, and you're getting years in the pen while your neighborhood pedophile gets months. As a racialized person, do you think a white judge understands why a life of crime has been your lifelong plan? Do you think the cops give a damn when you're getting robbed or beaten by your man? Of course you feel it necessary to take the law in your own hands. And sorry, I'm not convinced that stealing money from the government is a crime when they steal half our paychecks with their so-called taxes all the time. And if it was put into the community, that would be fine. But why are we paying for politicians to wine and dine while the government partners with Bell Canada to profit off prison phone lines? Why do the police receive funding equivalent to the public money spent on public health, paramedic services, public libraries, social housing, parks and recreation, and employment services combined? They want you to work doing their slave labor and wonder why you exhibit negative behavior. If you're Black or Indigenous, they did not write these laws in your favor. Society has you considered a danger. You steal someone's purse with $50 cash and they treat you like your ghetto street trash. But if your company and president embezzling millions from your company staff, you'll get bailed fast. Community service for your ass, because they only prefer having their inmates with no education, no power, and no class. People who use drugs get arrested, so they focus on addictions and send them to rehab with minor restrictions. Make the pharmacist your new drug dealer. That's part of your condition, so the government could make more money off methadone prescriptions. They love revolving door prisons, so they give you bail, stay on your tail, and wait for you to fail, so you could be part of the statistics of repeat offenders in jail. They hire more police officers to keep the streets clean, stop the epidemic of crack fiends and pregnant teens, but in reality, murdering people during mental health crisis is how they intervene, re-victimizing victims at domestic abuse scenes, and somehow we've normalized having suicide hotline numbers on all our gambling machines. They're not going to stop it when they're making a profit, because for the ultimate deception, liquor passes inspection. So our Indigenous population is murdering each other with no recollection. Drunk drivers go through red lights at the intersection, and alcoholism is tainting our community like a viral infection. Why do liquor stores never get affected by recession? Innocent until proven guilty is fiction, because every person who looks like me fits the description. So do you get the impression that they promote depression, cause that underlying aggression and memory suppression for the law enforcement won't need a new profession, trained for manipulation during investigations? They wouldn't have occupations if there wasn't altercations. So they broadcast violent expectations, police and soldiers slaughtering for a lifetime appreciation, and wonder why your children are shooting up their schools for a lifetime incarceration. All our systems are run by liars who every day conspire how to make the crime rate higher and how to cause more gunfire so they can open more federal resorts for convicts to retire. Thank you. So today I want to speak about community safety, because it's always a topic that comes up whenever we do these things. Whenever we do any kind of action, it's always like, but what about community safety? Who is keeping the community safe? How are we going to be safe from all the dangerous, scary people out there? Okay, so I want to share some of my personal experiences from some of these dangerous, scary people out there. I have so many. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time to speak, so I'm only going to share 3. So the first one is when I was about 17, 18. I had my first daughter with me, and me and my friend who was 15 were stopped in Sears department store by loss prevention being accused of shoplifting. I was arguing with them because I didn't take anything, but he was being very aggressive, so we went with him. I had a baby with me, and I was like, you know what, go ahead, call the police. They'll sort it out when they get here. That's what I thought, because they're here for community safety, right? And when the officer arrived, he started right away calling me a teenage slut, telling me I probably don't have a dad, and all kinds of other lovely things. And, you know, me being the very spicy teenager I was, I said some things back, which got him very upset. Now, this is somebody who's hired to keep our community safe and who also has a gun. And the way he reacted to a 17-year-old with a baby in her arms, words was just completely unbelievable and unacceptable. And I actually forgot this happened because I blocked it out until I was thinking about what to say for this event. So he was saying all kinds of stuff to me, and what I said to him was, you know, he started talking about my dad. I said, my dad makes more money in a day than you make in a year. And you probably got 50% average in high school to go to police academy because you were too stupid to go to university and get a degree. So with me saying that, it sent him, and I was 17 years old, it sent him in such a rage that he grabbed me and threw me on the ground with a baby in my arms. My friend who I was with jumped on his back, started attacking him. We both got charged for assault. I had to hold my infant daughter to my chest and kick him to get him off me. This was a big man. He wasn't a small guy. He was a very big guy. So he charged us both with assault. We didn't get charged for theft because we didn't even steal anything. And when we went to court, they said, we don't have any record of your charge and you don't exist in the system. So we were teenagers. We're like, oh, good, our charges are gone. Now, when I look back, I think about that loss prevention room and how there was a surveillance camera. And this man definitely did not want that surveillance to be played in court, throwing a 17-year-old teenage girl on the ground with a baby in her arms. The next incident I'm going to talk about is one that happened when I was 8 months pregnant with my third daughter, and I was on the bus with my 12-year-old in Montreal. We didn't live in Montreal at the time, so I left my car in Gatineau, so I was taking the bus this day, and there was this man standing behind her, and he was very creepy and I was sitting down because I was pregnant and she was standing in front of me, and I kept pulling her towards me because I just didn't like the way this man looked. And then my daughter ended up like flinching really fast and turning, so I was like, did you just touch my daughter? He had grabbed my daughter's bum. And he's like, started screaming stuff, you know, she told me to touch her, you people don't know anything about love, and he was not well. So now when we got off the bus at the Metro, Vendôme Metro, there's always police outside if anyone's from Montreal knows Vendôme Metro. So the police happened to be there. So once again, community safety. I go up to the police, I'm like, this man just assaulted my daughter, he's obviously not well, can you stop him? They stop him, they tell me I have to give them my daughter's jacket, they never told me what, it was December, so I had to give them my daughter's winter coat. They said the man was, you know, mentally ill and lived in an adult group home, and they would drive him back to the group home. I said, could you give him a condition not to ride the bus by himself? And they said, I have to speak to the detective. I spoke to the detective the next day asking, when am I getting my daughter's jacket back, which I was told, go get another one at the Salvation Army. My daughter's jacket was brand new. I never got it back, by the way. She was 12 at the time, she's 25 now. Who knows where that jacket went. I said, can you give this man a condition not to ride the bus by himself? He's obviously not well and it's not okay to be on the bus by himself. He said, no, we're not going to do that. The most your daughter's going to have to testify in front of us, testify in front of the Crown, then testify in court in front of the judge and everybody in court, and the most that you're going to get is a condition for him not to talk to you and your daughter. We don't even live in that city. So I said, I don't care about that. We don't live here. Can you give him a condition not to ride the bus? No. About a month later, one of my friends, I don't watch the news, one of my friends was like, go watch CTV on this news story they just played. I go look, and it was a news story about this boy who was followed off the bus by this man, 13-year-old boy, held down, sexually assaulted. The mother stayed at the bus stop every day until her son could point out the man. They followed him while on the phone with the police. They made the police seem like heroes in this story. The police reacted right away and followed this man and got him, and the bad guy's off the street. They showed a picture. They also said in the story, he's also under the investigation for assaulting a 12-year-old girl earlier this year. It was the same man who I asked him to just give a condition not to ride the bus by himself. Okay? So that could have been prevented, but this is community safety. I've had many incidents of domestic violence with a few different partners. One specific partner was in Ottawa, and often the police came, from neighbors calling or whoever. One time he chased me off the road with my kids, holding my hands running, repeatedly hitting me, and numerous people called the police. I'm going to share this photo. So this photo was taken by the Ottawa police. Now, why was it taken by the Ottawa police? Because I had to spend the night in the holding cell, like this, with broken ribs as well, because they decided they needed to arrest me too, that I was at fault. Even though my face looked like this, sorry, this is just kind of wrinkly. Even though my face looked like this, I was at fault, okay? They didn't see me as a victim. Now, often when they would come, they would say stuff like, you're both criminals, why don't you kill each other? You just want attention. We don't give a shit. Maybe if you were law-abiding citizens, we'd give a shit. There was one time they came and he climbed back in my back window while they were still parked outside. And I came outside and I said, he's back in my house, can you please get him out? And they said, no, we're not, because you just want attention. And I asked the officer, are you going to sleep good tonight if you hear in the news that this man killed me and my children tonight? He said, I don't care, because you guys are criminals and you should kill each other. Okay? And that's what they call community safety. So I want to end by saying, you know, we speak about community safety, not wanting certain dangerous people on the streets, not wanting these people in our community to be our neighbors. I will tell you who I don't want to be as my neighbors. The officers who told me we should both kill each other and they don't care and I just want attention. I don't want the man that assaulted my bus to be my neighbor, but you know who I don't want to be my neighbor even less? The detective who wouldn't give him a condition to not ride the bus by himself when he was clearly mentally ill and wasn't able to be on the bus without sexually assaulting children. Okay? I don't want the officer who grabbed a teenage girl with a baby in her arms and threw her violently to the ground to be my neighbor. I don't want the officer who came to Baseline Station in Ottawa when I was 15 as a group of my friends and told us all, I should shoot you all and let God sort you out and send you back to Africa. 15-year-old, okay? I don't want the officer who told me I shouldn't walk in front of this man's house because he was accusing us of going in his backyard because, you know, you're black, you put your hand in your coat, people think you're going to shoot. He did it just like that because that's how we talk, right? So I don't want him to be my neighbor. So when we speak about community safety, I think that we could start feeling safer when we start defunding the police. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. This event has been organized today in part by the Justice for Anthony Alls Collective. I'm sure many people in this room know that name, but for those of you who don't know, Anthony was a young man in his 20s who was living at home with his family when in the fall of 2021, the police conducted a raid in the early hours of the morning in his home with his family members present. And somehow, we don't know exactly, Anthony ended up going through the window, the apartment building, and falling to his death down on the ground. The police who decided that they were going to do this raid knew that Anthony was at home that morning because he was wearing an ankle monitor. They knew where Anthony was all the time. And his family were more than happy to cooperate with his investigation and give police any information that they wanted about Anthony. But they decided that they were going to do this raid anyway, and it cost him his life. That is how I met Nora, Anthony's mom, who started the collective and who has been working along with many other families in this room and across this country for the last several years, fighting against police brutality and speaking about her son and honoring his memory, because Anthony really should still be with us here today, as should so many other people. So I'd like you to please welcome Nora Host.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, especially the volunteers and all the organizers who help us to have this happening. And yes, as everyone is saying, it's not that I volunteered to be here. I never thought I would be in this situation. There's no much that I want to say it, because the reason that I am here and the reason that I have somebody very, very close to my heart who started this path with me, and they are incarcerated, but they have something to say, which I've been saying from the beginning, and I believe it's worth it to have their speak being read. As a mother, we've been through this path almost 5 years. I was 40 years, 50 years, 5 years ago. And you raise your children and you treasure your children and you think everything is going to be okay. And of course, I was one of those persons who think the police are just doing their job. The only reason I am here is because it happened to me, and I learned, unfortunately, through life that the police are never doing their job. The police is there to kill, to terrorize, and that's it. That's their job. The government gives them a license to do it. And they will be doing forever as long as the people, as long as the community, as long as the mothers allow them to do it. I learned early this week, I don't know how much you guys already have here, there is was a president in the Philippines, and Rodrigo Duarte or something, I believe it's his name. He was there for 6 years, and when he called his goal, his idea, like many politicians, or maybe many of ours, was to get the criminal out of the street. And in his mission, he killed many. He killed many people. What in his mind were criminals and dangers to the society. I mean, the really dangerous was him. After he left the presidency, we were the mother. It's the mother across the country. It's the mother. It's the woman who fights, who asks, who calls, who cries. He's being arrested. So if that was possible on the Philippines, which is a third world country, why will it not be possible here if we just speak up? It's not that we are making. Nobody here is to be having 5 minutes of fame. I do not like to speak. I do not like to be in the camera. But I lost my son. And when the police in any way were destroyed or my son fell, which they killed him, they asked me to be here. They asked me to speak, and they asked me, I never want a parent, I never want a mother, I never want, not even the police or the government to lose their children in such a violent way, because we have our kids, and there's nothing that even an animal lost the most, and we were the most. If my son was in trouble, of course, I have never said my son was in trouble, but he was 23 years old, and he didn't have the chance to be a man. He didn't have even the chance to realize, hey, I'm making a mistake. I'm doing something which is not right. We took care of him, we helped him, and I would have done anything. I believe I was policing my son personal, and that hurt me, to keep him safe. And here we are. I lost my kids. And by together, we lost many things, because we are not normal anymore, we can't function anymore, and we do not have a life anymore. I am going to leave you with one of my friends who is going to read a statement, and many of those words I have in my heart, and therefore I think they should be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm now going to be reading out a solidarity statement that was written by Aisha Ben-Slimane. And Aisha is currently being held at Ottawa Carleton Detention Center. They are a criminalized and illegalized person who remains active in the movement against prisons and policing even while they remain incarcerated. Aisha wrote and recorded this statement from inside to extend their solidarity and strength with the families here today and those who are also not here, who are impacted by police killings and violence, including Nora. Aisha's recorded statement is a very powerful 24 minutes long, so we unfortunately won't be able to hear the entire statement today, but the audio of them reading their statement out loud, I believe, is being posted online, so please do go and listen after. So today I'll just be reading an excerpt. This letter is written from jail in support of the families whose members were killed by the police and who gathered to mark the 2025 International Day to End Police Brutality on colonized Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory and beyond. March 15, 2025. From the dungeness confines of the notorious jail located on these stolen lands, the Ottawa Carleton Detention Center, I remain here, forcibly confined on pre-trial detention, fighting for my freedom amongst my peers, with our heads held high, refusing to bow nor to be crushed by the suffocatingly heavy yoke imposed upon our necks and our shoulders by the illegitimate settler colonial Canadian state and its agents. First and foremost, I would like to dedicate these words by way of tribute to all those who were murdered or lost their lives within these walls of decay and oblivion throughout the years since this fortified hellscape was erected some 50 years ago. Regardless of what caused their death in this manufactured fortress, and in the words of lifer prisoner activist Peter Collins, whose own last breath he took in a Canadian penitentiary, there is no natural death behind bars. To Amar Zuhair, murdered on 9th of February 2025, to my dear friends Jeffy and Ben, who died last year a few cells down from the very cell where I composed this letter, only a few days apart from each other, to Justin, Cleve, to the stillborn babies, and to the women who perished while held against their will in these human cages. Those who I cannot name and whose lives and stories are invisibilized by this partial and dehumanizing system which regards criminalized lives as disposable and unworthy. This tribute, abstracted from any hierarchical prioritization, is also paid to Anthony, Regis, Abdurrahman, Greg, Jared, Jermaine, Jamal, Aisha, and all those murdered by the enforcers of the settler colonial police. It is in honor of their sacred lives and driven by the unwavering strength and commitment of their families under the leadership of their matriarchs that we observe this event here today. I sincerely hope the content of this letter and its intention is perceived as honorable by those who matter the most to me and who will forever have my allegiance, as sporadic as it may have been as of late. Please forgive my trespasses and accept my renewed commitment to your cause, which in fact is inextricably my own. You and I are forever connected in love, in struggle, in rage, in solidarity. I say this while making the devastating acknowledgement that no measure of allegiance nor commitment would undo the loss you experience, nor bring your angels back to life, nor extinguish your ongoing trauma and grief. With the same breath, I admiringly applaud your courageous ardor in the pursuit of justice, as elusive and seemingly unattainable that goal may seem. In the name of your slain and martyred family members, it is irrefutable to me that your conviction to pursue change, whether through reform or abolition, is worthy of the highest laurels of honor. From the time I spent amongst you, I learned that your conviction stems from a tender yet principled love for all creation that is crystallized and deeply seated within your heart, and a fervent desire to prevent the catastrophes the settler colonial Canadian state put you through from happening to others. Although in my idealistic and dreamy imaginary, I believe that nothing short of a universal decolonial revolution sweeping across the globe and flipping head over heels the current civilizing zeitgeist would be capable of ending cultural brutality. I remain steadfastly convinced that solidarity with you in a responsible and principled way is one of the linchpins of this coveted revolution. Furthermore, this letter would miss its mark if I don't use this opportune moment to explicitly connect the reason for which you today gather in the struggle of Palestinian kin being genocided by the Israeli settler colonial apartheid regime since the 1948 Nakba, the Uyghur people being ethnically cleansed by the Chinese police state and those of them caged in internment camps, of Sudanese people being mass murdered and used as disposable pawns in the games of empire, played by the powerful who fuel and arm sectarian conflict to the detriment of the civilian masses, of migrants suffering from deportation, precarious existence, and other violent consequences of this ever-intensifying global regime of border imperialism, of Iranian women being jailed by an existential patriarchal regime for merely trying to liberate themselves, and all oppressed and subjugated creations, land, waters, and air. As addressed below, police brutality is merely one of the symptoms of a globalized and localized system of gendered, racialized, class, and ableist domination, capitalist dispossession, and bloodthirsty civilized wars. Although our struggles are distinct, they intersect directly and in convoluted ways. They connect us, the rest of the earth. Here, I would like to thank everyone involved in supporting you by way of organizing alongside you, financially donating to you, attending the event, sharing about it, and so on and so forth. Before further delving into the main subjects of this letter, I warn those present or who are reading this, those who experience benefits from or are complicit in the systems I denounce, against the elitist capture of the struggles I cite, whether it be privileged academics whose career advancement is predicated on the institutionalized scientific voyeurism they deploy on our rich experiences and communities, or the detached vanguard of activists who digest and regurgitate intellectualized analyses and speak on, not alongside us, or the legal counsel whose support for criminalized people and their families ends at the court. Beware, in the blunt words of post-colonial author, thinker, and militant Frantz Fanon, it is, and I quote, the unpreparedness of the elites, the lack of practical ties between them and the masses, their apathy, and yes, their cowardice at the crucial moment in the struggle, are the cause of tragic trials and tribulations, end quote. Being victims of carceral violence does not constitute the entire makeup of our identities. We are humans in the complete sense of the term, and beyond the expansive meanings contained within the metaphysics of words and language. Therefore, when we try to build movements that uplift our experience as survivors in a simplified and unidimensional fashion, while discarding and without accounting for our rich, complex, and sometimes even messy existence, we inadvertently flatten our truth. Consequently, and unintentionally mirroring insidious, tokenistic representation and reproducing reductionist views and modes of relating the strips of our full, blossoming, and thorny humanity. When writing on the issue of solidarity activism, anti-colonial South Asian migrant, author, organizer, educator, Harsha Walia notes that solidarity activists perish wood into communities during moments of crisis, exiting shortly after. She then quotes Black feminist theorist Bell Hooks, who underlines that solidarity is not the same as support. To experience solidarity, we must have a community of interests, shared beliefs, and goals around which to unite to build sisterhood. Support can be occasional, it can be given and just as easily withdrawn. But solidarity requires sustained, ongoing commitment, end quote. We should strive to achieve responsible and principled solidarities that function as effective social and economic anecdotes and counterbalances to colonial and capitalist isolation, divisions, and dislocations. To put it plainly, one cannot say they're in solidarity with criminalized people and their families whose members were killed by the carceral apparatus if they are absent from the daily lives of those they prefer to be in solidarity with, or withdraw their support when they come face to face with the urgent messiness of their lives. Solidarity is about breaking the cycle, building up the people amongst us who have been undone and shattered, and showing up tangibly for those who suffer directly from the systems we condemn on mutually negotiated terms. I invite those who interact with you for the sake of your martyred children to check in on you frequently, to be there for you when you face a precarious housing situation, when your car stops working, and to build nurturing relationships with you around delicious food and exquisite drinks, not only reach out to you for actions, panels, and gatherings. These are tangible first steps one can take in good faith towards avoiding the pitfalls enumerated by Fanon. I'll address the issue of cowardice he raises further below, but that said, I'd like to now confront the issue at hand, to begin addressing the crux of the International Day Against Police Brutality. I found it important to define and expand on the notion essential to this gathering, that is police brutality, and to share, although partly, my mediation on what I believe necessary to bring this brutality to a complete halt. We can endeavor to make sense of police brutality by examining it and in naming the effects of it in an a posteriori fashion. After the fact, as you gather today, on the aftermath of the state-sanctioned police murders of Anthony, Regis, Jamal, Abdurrahman, Jermaine, Jared, Aisha, and all others murdered by the police, we can define police brutality as the explicitly violent instances where police officers use brute and or fatal force to coerce, attack, maim, and or kill civilians. Police brutality is excessive even by a commonsensical barometer, and its effects are irreversible, injurious, and devastating. Liberals and mainstream proponents of policing would like to lead us to believe that its occurrence is anomalous, that policing is a fair system where instances of brute force are exceptions, caused by individual officers who act maliciously or mistakenly. In fact, I know many of you were convinced policing is a fair system until you found out the hard way. Police brutality, I must stress, is an intrinsic feature of policing and a systemic issue we cannot disassociate from, nor purge it of our collective efforts that fall short of reifying abolition. I further argue that despite the inroads accomplished by the national and international wings of the anti-police movement, the issue of police brutality is worsening to unprecedented proportions during these contemporary times. To illustrate my point, it pains and humbles me to put forth Anthony's story. Of course, no one is better placed than you, his parents, his family, to speak on his name, but it is important for me to make the following point. Anthony is dead, but his story and his honorable legacy must remain alive. He, for me, is a star in the constellation of the martyrs, guiding us in our journey towards liberation. On October 7th, 2020, colonial agents from the Ottawa Police Service's drug squad executed a search warrant against Anthony, who they suspected of trafficking drugs, on alleged information they obtained from a police narc whose identity is so far kept confidential. At the time, he was on judicial interim release, that is, bail. He wore a GPS ankle electronic monitoring device, as stipulated by court-imposed conditions of release, and resided with his mother, stepfather, 2 younger siblings, and now deceased grandmother. To gain access to the family's dwelling, the Ottawa Police Service's agent resorted to the controversial militaristic tactic known as the no-knock raid, or dynamic entry. In full tactical gear, the unit ramped the apartment door open through distraction devices, a smoke grenade, and a flashbang, and stormed the family's dwelling, violently assaulting the father on the way to Anthony's room. Then Anthony lay lifeless on the grass beside his building, dead from a 12-story fall. Although the circumstances around his fall remain nebulous, one thing is clear beyond reasonable doubt to me. The Ottawa police officers' unwarranted actions, whether they pushed him or not, killed Anthony. Anthony's police murder raises several questions, and I hope the current lawsuits you made against them provide you the answers you seek, and that these murderous costs are held to account one way or the other. Why did they knock and request entry instead of defaulting to urban warfare tactics on your poor family? Why didn't they work with you, his mother, and surety at the time in the execution of the warrant? The court had entrusted you to be his civilian jailer. Why then did the police trust you to deliver Anthony to them for search purposes? No-knock raids are inherently violent practices that leave civilians traumatized and increase the risk of injury to home dwellers. Thus, Was the evidence OPS allegedly tried to recover more important than your family's safety and Anthony's life? Like I said, you can listen to the rest online where it'll be posted.
Thank you very much. The next person I want to ask to come up here is Anthony Marriott. Anthony, are you here? Anthony had his own life-changing experience that I'm going to allow him to tell you about with the police when he was 17 years old. And after you hear Anthony's story, I think you're going to understand why I say it is a miracle that he is with us today and not only able to be here, but to keep being a strong advocate against police brutality of the kind that you've already been hearing about. I remember meeting you, and I remember that we were at an action together in Mississauga, and Anthony had never spoken before publicly about what had happened to him with the police. And it was because he was around other people who were deciding to do that, and who were speaking out about their experiences, that he joined this rally and decided that he was going to start talking, and he hadn't stopped.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for everyone to be here. It really means a lot to me and the family. And thanks for all the organizers that put together this event and took the time and effort, and the food is wonderful. So thanks, everybody. Thanks again. Well, my name is Anthony Marriott, and I'm a survivor of a near-fatal horrific interaction with the Toronto police. When I was 17 in Markham and Eglinton building, in a Scarborough neighborhood I lived in, there was an altercation between me and another man in the building. The confrontation quickly escalated between us one night in the building stairwell, where I had to disarm and strike my attacker in order to defend and thus save my life. Police arrived at my friend's 11th floor apartment in the same building we all lived in, where the fight took place. They banged on the door and barged in. When they were let inside, they began to charge at me when they saw me. Nervous, I ran. I ran almost all over the house. I ran to the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, and then finally, unfortunately, onto the balcony. Seconds behind me, I remember with my back turned, the cop threw me off my friend's 11th floor balcony. I woke up 3 days later from a coma and spent about 3 weeks in the hospital before I was able to walk out on my own. That was in 1997. The SIU was cleared of all the police, cleared all the police involved. The media controlled all the narrative on the news and the newspaper. But on April 13, 2023, Anna Jessup from Spring Magazine did an article on me. So if you want to go know more about the story, you could look into that article by Googling me, Googling Spring Magazine and my name, and you'll see my story being told. So my point in coming here today is to show my support and solidarity with the movement, because we need to make awareness. We need awareness to this problem, and we need solutions and the police to step up and take accountability for their actions, because there's a lot of families suffering, and we don't want this to happen anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I'd next like to call on Anne-Marie White, who traveled here from the GTA and is the mother of Jamal Francis. It's been over 5 years now since the Peel Regional Police took Jamal away from us, and Anne-Marie has been fighting all that time and supporting many of the other moms and families who've been going through their own situations as well. So please welcome Anne-Marie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming out to support us. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to share. I'm going to speak about my son's story. Thank you. Jamal, my son Jamal. Jamal was a sweet, loving young man. He had an infectious smile. Those who knew Jamal would agree that he was
Okay, I got you.
Those who knew Jamal would agree. Okay, I'm sorry. Those who knew Jamal would agree that he was genuinely tender-hearted. He never denied anyone forgiveness and firmly believed in second chances. He was very kind and respectful, especially to his elders. He embraced everyone's differences and consequently built strong friendships with people from all walks of life. He saw no distinction in race, religion, gender, disability, or age. And I have to say, when I say he was just a beautiful young man. There was one time my doorbell rang, and it was an older lady. She looked like, honestly, like she was about 75. And she's like, "Oh, it's Jamal home?" And I'm looking at this lady like, "I'm sorry, who are you?" She said, "I'm Jamal's friend." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, my son is not home." And when Jamal did come home, and I said, "There was a lady here to see you," and she told me her name was, let's say, Julie. And he's like, "Oh, that's my friend, Mommy." And I'm like, "Jamal," she's like, 75. Like, how are you guys friends? And my son stood 6'6". He was really tall. And he looked down at me, and he's like, "Mommy," no disrespect still, but she's younger than you. I love her. Right? And he's like, "She's my friend. Like, you know, she's good to us. She's good to my boys and I." And I'm like, yeah, that was my son. So in a world full of challenges and hardships, Jamal's optimism would shine like the bright light he was. He was empathetic. He had a good heart, which was evident through his selfless acts of kindness. He embodied traits of loyalty, compassion, and bravery. Jamal was a smart, talented young man. He was very diligent in finding new job opportunities and was always up for a challenge. Having graduated Gonzaga Secondary School, he then went to community college. He went on to pursue a career in HVAC, all the while entertaining his interest in rebuilding old classic cars. He also enjoyed playing sports, and at 6'6", he towered over his peers on the basketball courts. Jamal would rarely back down from a challenge, whether that be in video games, sports, or how many hot wings he could eat in one sitting. He loved chicken wings. Above all, Jamal was an artist. He expressed himself throughout writing and producing music, singing, dancing. Of all Jamal's qualities,
the most important to note is his unfailing interest in prioritizing others' well-being before his own, and the unconditional love he had for his family. On January 7th, 2020, my life changed forever. I came home from work earlier than usual. I saw my beautiful son outside. He had just picked up his kids from school and he was saying goodbye to his children and the mother. We went inside to catch up like we always do after work. And he loves McDonald's as well. So I had a gift card that I had gotten from work, a McDonald's gift card. So I'm like, here, Papa, take this and take it for yourself. And he's like, thank you, Mommy. When the kids get dropped off tomorrow, I'll take them to McDonald's for breakfast. But it never happened. A week prior, I'm just going to speak without this. A week, Jamal was under surveillance because they thought he was dealing drugs, the drug dealer. And he was also out on bail, and I was his surety. And so he was under surveillance for drug dealing. The Peel police said they saw him a week prior going to his girlfriend's house without his surety, which was myself and my husband at the time. And then that evening of January 7th, they said they saw him outside, which when he was with his kids, because they were in the parking lot, he was under surveillance. And my problem with that is, if you see it's a breach, it's a bail, a breach or a charge doesn't constitute guilt, right? He was on bail, so you saw him outside, with his kids, and you thought he was breaching, then approach him, because my son was the most respectful young man. His mannerism was amazing. Okay, he would have said, okay, officers, I'm just picking up my kids, or, but if you think I'm breaching, okay, I'll go with you guys. They didn't do that. They watched him, and then I went to work. I went back online to work, and I didn't know Jamal. We had the conversation in the kitchen, and he's like, I gave him the gift card. He's like, okay, Mommy, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to take a shower and go play some video games. And I said, okay, Papa. And so I was working, and then my husband called me, and it was after 7. My husband called me, and he asked me, why is our complex surrounded with emergency vehicles? I'm like, and I just stopped what I was doing because I have black boys. That's just the reality of it. And I ran upstairs, and my younger son, Brian Jr., was playing video games. And I asked him, where's your brother? And he said, he's in the basement, Mommy. He's playing video games as well. I ran to the basement, and Jamal wasn't there, and I told him. So I ran outside, and just around the corner where I know he would probably be parked, and it was taped off, yellow tape, and I couldn't get where I saw a vehicle crashed into a garage, and I recognized the vehicle that would have been my son's first vehicle that he would have been driving. And so I couldn't go over to the vehicle, so I asked an officer to just identify even the plate for me, because I knew it was a vehicle, I just didn't want to believe. And, there were people around, and, this young man, he said to me, somebody got shot, a young man got shot, and he's dead, right? So the officer came back, and he said, the person isn't in the car, he was transported, a while ago. But he didn't know what hospital he was transported to. So my last conversation with my son was, and he said, Mommy, I wasn't feeling well. And, when I got a call from the hospital, eventually, I found where he was. There's a hospital like 2-3 minutes from my house, Credit Valley, and it took him half an hour away. And when I walked into the hospital room, it's like, as a mother, you're always, it's a weakness, and it takes you over. I walked into the hospital room and I saw my son. I couldn't believe it. But prior to that, the doctor called me and he said,
You can't save him. His brain has been shattered. And I have a problem with the SIU's report because it was full of inconsistencies and all these discrepancies. I mean, the subject officer said they waited for my son to sit in the car. They watched him leave the house, waited for him to sit in the car. And then they ambushed him. And that officer said my son was driving at him, drove at him. They came upon him in like plain clothes with their guns drawn. But then the subject officer said he fired directly at my son. My son is 6'6". But then my son was shot in the back of his head. In the back of his head. And yet the SIU cleared these officers of all wrongdoing. And I'm never going to stop fighting for my son because they murdered my child and then they try to cover it up. They explain in their report, where's number 4? You know what they told me? Trajectory or ballistics was inconclusive, so they can't tell me how my son was shot in the back of his head. And I'm not ever going to accept that. My child did not deserve what they did to him. And I never knew what love was. I never knew unconditional love until I had my baby. And I never knew pain until I lost that boy. Because Jamal had the most beautiful soul. They took him from me. And I know how this feels. And I know the emptiness. And I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't break down, but I can't help it. The pain is real. We lost our loving son, my loving son, a devoted father, a thoughtful brother, and a compassionate friend. On January 9th, he took his last breath. That's my story. And I appreciate you guys listening to my story. And I appreciate you guys standing with us. And I ask that you continue to stand with us and help us to get the justice that our children deserve.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Before we take a little break, I'd like to ask Claudette Beals-Clayton to come up here. I drove up here today with Claudette and her husband, Pete, and I met them almost 5 years ago now when their daughter Regis died after a police call to their home at 100 High Park in Toronto. This happened 2 days after George Floyd was killed in the United States in Minneapolis, and the whole world was talking about police brutality and unnecessary police intervention when he just died. And one of the largest marches that I've ever been to in Toronto happened for Regis, and people came from all parts of the GTA on buses and on trains, and people marched through the streets, young people, people of all different backgrounds, because they were outraged that another Black woman had been taken from us by the police. And all these years later, Pete and Claudette are still fighting for answers and for accountability. And I have been connected to so many other families who are going through these kinds of things, particularly through Claudette, because I don't know how, but Claudette has this super skill for finding people for reaching out to people, for seeing a news story and being like, I'm going to find out who those people are and where they live because they need our help and they need our support. And she doesn't stop doing this despite the fact that she and her family have to continue to deal with their own pain and their own struggles. So I just want to honor all of the women, all of the moms who are continuing this network, who are continuing this work and making it possible for us to do these things. And I want to thank and honor Claudette and ask you to come up here, please.
Hi, I'm Claudia, and it's amazing how we call this International Police Brutality Day. But I don't agree with that, but I agree that it's the KKK Day, okay? Because these are the people that are killing our children. They're sitting up there in blue uniforms and taking the lives of our children and literally getting away with it, okay? The SIU was clearing them for everything that they do. We have no control over our own children. We can't say anything to our children, but the police can. They can beat our kids. They can rape our kids, kill our kids. They can do whatever they want. And we can't say anything to our children because if we say something, they're like, call the police. Because your mother's going to jail. Your father's going to jail now. So how are we allowing these guys to get away with this? And they're giving the police so much money. For what? They're putting absolutely nothing in our communities. They don't even care what's happening to the people in our communities, okay? So, and this starts for me way back when we were taken out of Africa, slaves. So yes, we like to honor our indigenous land here, but what about our Black people that came here? And look at the way we're treated. And I don't really see anybody acknowledging that for us. But it's true, we're treated like trash. We were treated like trash from day one, beating us, doing whatever they want to us, and they're still doing it. How is that possible? Like, why do we have to be held accountable for the skin color, our skin color, right? And I would love to sit up here and say, if you're white, things are different for you, but you know what, all the time, that's not true either, okay? The police, like, okay, maybe if you're white and rich, I don't know, because if you're white and poor, you ain't treated no different than us. And people don't see that. It's always talking about this white privilege. What white privilege? These are just really, really nasty people. And they don't care because they came to my house and made a wellness check call. I'm going to tell you something. To this day, I always feel very responsible for my daughter losing her life because I made that call. And if I wouldn't have made that call, I believe my daughter would still be here. But of course, I needed some help that day. How do you come in somebody's house and throw a child off the balcony? 24 flights. And then lie, talking about how she barricaded them from inside of the house, not from outside, not on the balcony, but from inside of my house. She barricaded them. How is that possible? Says she threw a air conditioner on the ground and so they couldn't get to her. When the police went in my house, my daughter was dead. My daughter was actually laying on the ground 1 minute after because it's all on camera and you see them coming out of my house. And this is the stuff we have to deal with. But I'm like you, Anne-Marie. I'm going to stop fighting, okay? I'm not going to stop until we get these guys, okay? Because they need to be held accountable for what they're doing, and they're not. And we're not going to allow these guys to get away with this. It's not going to happen. Okay, so listen at this. Came to Ottawa and did a speech. And when I get back home, I think got back Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, the police are in my house saying that somebody was sexually assaulted in my house. So a bunch of cops come up to my house. Of course, again, they make me stand outside. But my grandkids are in the house. They treated my grandkids like they were trash. They took all kinds of stuff out of my home. They never, ever came back, never got in touch with us, nothing. And then a couple of days ago, I was in Ottawa. They were back at my house. 5 days they settled in front of my house. Now they're talking about we're harboring people. That's why they're there. But they went all through my house. But I told my son, if it was me, when they said I'll kick in your door, you should have let them kick it in. If you know you're not doing nothing else, here, come to my house, kick in the door, okay? And what you get when you come in my house, because I'm the queen of my house, okay? And you say you come in my house anymore, it's not going to happen. Police are not allowed in my house. I want to just thank everybody for coming out. You guys are pretty amazing. Thanks for listening to us. This is really hard. I've been having a really hard time even trying to break down and cry. I was here a couple of weeks ago, and I was with Noah, so I got to cry a little bit, but I haven't really cried since my daughter has passed because I need to get the police, and I don't really have time for the tears. I just have time to fight. And that's all I want to do. I just want to fight and fight and fight until this starts working for us. We're coming out here all the time, okay, all the time, and we fight so hard, but we're not seeing no results. We have a 211 number in Toronto right now. So if you're having a mental breakdown or anything, that's the number you should be calling. The police don't even direct anybody to that number. The police are still going out on wellness check calls. For what reason? Like, nobody wants you because we already know more than likely somebody's going to lose their life. I wouldn't call the police, okay? If I have a problem, I'm calling my neighbor, okay? Because unfortunately, I feel I would be a lot safer. I can't trust these people. And it's very, very sad because these are the same people that are supposed to serve and protect us. But actually, they're to serve and protect the states. Always remember, we're called the land of the free. What does that mean? Because I have no idea. So why do we have police if they're not going to do anything for us? So we need to get rid of them. I think the community, well, listen, does anybody agree with me? Do you not think the community can take care of their own doggone community? What do you need the police for? We don't need the police. We want them gone, okay? If they can't be properly trained, then we don't need them, and they're not being trained. All these guys are doing is bringing more cops in here, more cops in Ontario to do what, kill us? Thank you, everybody. I can't even talk anymore.
Hello, I'm Regis' dad. I didn't know that balcony death. I knew the police did some crazy things, but I didn't know about balcony death until it happened. Regis was, she called me at 5:36, and she was dead around 5.
She died at 5:30.
No, 5:40.
Okay, 5:40.
Around that time.
But it was before 6.
Yeah, I was at a documentary screening, and they were showing a documentary, and then I see these criminologists up front, and they're just talking like shop, laughing here and there, like it's nothing. But I went up to one of them later, and I stood near him, and he looked at me. He's like, He goes, yeah. He goes, I got to tell you something. I talked to some people in law enforcement, and they told me that the balcony death is a real thing. So anyway, yeah, so when I got to the apartment, she was like 20 people in the building, and I never saw one of the pictures on the SAU report is at the very bottom because they couldn't read, throwing bullshit, like lie after lie, right? So I met this guy online. He was doing videos against cops at Lab Press. And I messaged him. I said, hey, Regis is dead. And like, oh, he gets back to me after a few days. He goes, I didn't realize who you were. He goes, man, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, you want to do a documentary about your daughter? I go, sure. So it turns out he's an ex-cop. And I was watching his videos, and he really goes after him. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure he'll do a good job. So he did the video, and it's up online. Mad Lad Press. So when I do these, I don't write anything down. I don't know where I'm going to start or where I'm going to. Anyway, yeah, last month or so has been really, really hard. I don't know why. But, there's a lot of racist cops that need to go. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but, I don't know how like cops that work with these groups, these pieces of shit. Like, you got to be a real piece of shit. Unalive a girl, choke her, strangle her, drag her across your living room floor while she's screaming for her mom, and then throw her up a balcony. They lied. The SA lied. The police lied. That's documented now. The lawyer that I just hired, he told me I can go out there and say that they lied. Everything in the report's a lie. And then you got to hear stuff on the news about, oh, those poor cops. They had to go into a house and they would break up a big fight with their knives. The police chief said, I would never send a nurse into a knife fight. There was no knives. You were at the elevator talking with my family. You said, who's on the lease? My son said, you know what? I'm going to go. No, you're not going anywhere. You stay here. So my wife and my son go down the hallway, leave Regis behind, because they didn't know what was going to happen. They thought, Regis would come eventually. Then my son, he said he heard noise. He turned around, and they were shoving her all over the hallway. Then that's when she called me. They said that she was in the bathroom when she called me, but she wasn't. She wasn't. She was in the hallway. She said, Dad, I'm scared. I was like an hour away. So she was in the hallway. She needed to go use the washroom. And this is what they did. It's all tactical. A lot of people don't get it. They don't realize it. Why would they do this? Why? Like, I don't know. You tell me. They're racist cops, and they sacrifice people. Black and Indigenous, and probably white people too. Well, they'll never put a white person on the news because that's not good, right? You don't want white people finding out. They throw white people off, right? But if it's Black and Indigenous, like, who gives a shit, right? So what they do is they tell the family to go in the stairwell. We got this under control. Don't worry, Pops. Don't worry, Mom. You go in the stairwell. We'll take care of it. Okay, kid, go use the washroom. She goes inside. She went to the left, not the right. Her friend was on a WhatsApp call with her while she's walking in the apartment, like talking to her on the phone. And then her friend, took me 6 months to find this out, but all she saw was a hand come over her and knock her down. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? She's like, oh, I thought that was your son. I go, no, He was in the stairwell. They were inside with her. It took us 2.5 years to get the hallway video. They let the SIU report come out, so all their bullshit lies, and then they released the hallway video. So after the first unit of cops, they organized the whole thing, get everyone upset, get Regis upset. He said at one point, wait till my dad gets back here. He's white. Stinky fucking cops. Stinky fucking cops had their hands around my daughter and murdered her. And then they ran in one after the next. It's on case files. You can watch it on case files, but also you can see this piece of garbage monster, Glenn Waddell. He's a G20 cop who beat Darian Barton, and he got acquitted because they had a little chat with him before the court case. And once they acquitted him, then they released all the body injuries of Adam Nobody, they call him. This is the G20 cop that was allowed to be a cop for how many years? That was unbelievable. Just Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, doesn't matter what city you're in, North America, all over the world. You got the worst cops. Canada's the worst. I talked to a lobbyist at a bar one day. He does work. He told me, he goes, look, I did this special operation. He goes, I had to quit. He goes, what I saw, Canada is the worst country for racist cops. Probably Australia too, right behind, I don't know. Yeah, so she goes in the apartment, and then even one of the lady cops said that she saw Waddell on the balcony with Regis. They cut her off. All of the microphones is when Regis was screaming, Mom, help, all erased. You can hear static because they erased it all. I can't stand when I'm walking around seeing body cams now, because that body cams is from my daughter. Anytime I see a body cam, I think of my daughter. But even if they would have had the body cam, they probably would erase that. Like, there's no winning with these guys, All we can do is just keep doing what we're doing and make more people aware and let's get bigger, right? So we can do something to finally end all this stuff. Hopefully we can. So at the funeral home, they are in cahoots with the police too. They let Regis's body lay out with unrefrigerated for 2 weeks. Yeah, the guy called me up and goes, yeah, you got to cremate Regis. Why do you think we bring it back to the funeral home after her funeral? You idiot. And the guy's like, oh, well, I called the lawyer up. I go, you're fired. She went to Newfoundland, second autopsy, it was, her hyoid bone was missing. First one was cracked. That's strangulation.
Because he hit her in the throat with the gun. That's why.
The gun, some people say that it was
That's what they did.
a beanbag gun to a shot to the throat, whatever. A relative of mine called me up 30 days after we just died and said, I'm golfing with this guy. He's your neighbor. I'm like, okay. Yeah, he saw everything on the balcony. What happened? I'm like, where? Let me talk to him. 2 seconds later, it's like, holy shit, that's your relative? I didn't have no idea. Never heard from him again. I found videos, people who have videos across the street. And in the report, it said that they went to this guy's house and confiscated, took his video because he called the tip line. And everyone who had a webcam, they're all calling the police. They're giving them everything, right? They spend millions and millions of dollars to cover this up. That's why you go to Mad Lad Press and you see the video and it says cover up, Regis Kaczynski Paquette. Probably the biggest cover up. Would you probably say, who knows, who cares really? But yeah, they spent millions of dollars and they went like canvassing all the neighborhood. I found where the guy's house was, and I went up to his apartment, and he didn't speak English, Romanian. I said, do you have a tape of this? What happened? He's like, here, have a drink. I had a drink. He goes, two guys came in here. I go, what, they went to your computer? Yeah. They went on the computer. Yeah, they go on the computer. They go on the computer and take what they had to take. And in the report, the police and SIU said that we went to a guy's house. He called the tip line, so we went to go investigate. We went to we had some film and we lost it. So it just gets worse and worse, the cover up. So yeah, the picture of Regis falling, yeah, that copy did the video and goes, do you want me to send it to you? Because I go, I didn't see it. And then I looked at it and I was like, I think that's when my trauma has started again. Because I went to work that day and I was so mad. Like anyone talked to me any which way. I went after so many people that day. That had just, little things, like you said the littlest thing to me and you're going to get it. I was so mad. Her body was like this. Here's the building, and here's the body, and here's the feet. And she's like this. That's what they did. And they did it to so many people in Canada, all over the world. Anywhere where there's a apartment building, sure enough, someone went off it, especially in low-income neighborhoods. So that's my story.
Thank you, Pete, and thank you, Claudette. I was looking through some statistics, and when I say statistics, I mean people, because every one of the numbers that I speak about here represents a story like the ones that you're hearing up here, and not just numbers, obviously. But we don't do a very good job keeping numbers and statistics about who dies at the hands of the police in Canada every year. I know this because I'm a journalist, and that kind of information is very useful to us when we can get our hands on it. But when no one decides to collect it in a comprehensive way, it's actually very hard for us to report on how bad police violence is in Canada. And I'm only talking about the kind of police violence that results in someone's death. But let me come back to that in just a second. From the numbers that we have, in 2020, the police in Canada shot 60 people, and 36 of those 60 people died. In 2021, it was 70 people, 37 of whom died. In 2022, it was 87 people, 46 of whom died. 2023, 85 people shot by the police in Canada, 41 of whom died. And last year, I couldn't find a comprehensive number of how many people were shot by the police, but thanks to the Tracking Injustice project, some of the people who are behind that are actually in this room. It's a collaboration, yes. Because Tracking Injustice decided to do what our governments refuse to do, which is to try and start keeping this data so that the communities can have access to it. And by their count, 52 people died in the hands of the police last year. And when I say shot and died, I am not talking even about those who die in jail cells. and not talking about people who go into police custody for any number of reasons and for whatever reason never come back out alive again. There are a lot of statistics and information and stories in here that are not included in these towns, and the numbers are very, very hard to count in a proper and systemic kind of way. But there's, as I said, a lot of things that these numbers don't reflect. So the majority of people who are harmed by the police have a story that's, I think, much more similar to the kinds of things that Vanessa talked about, the first speaker that you heard from. Most people who interact with the police don't die, but they might get harassed. They might get racially profiled or insulted or demeaned. They might be told something because of their gender or their sexuality or a perceived ability or disability that they may have. That's the majority of the time. It's not death, but that's not going to be on your newscast. The majority of people might get a beating from the police, but they won't die. And most of the time, that's not what's going to make it on your newscast. When you hear that the Special Investigations is investigating something, it's because someone has died at the hands of the police, or they have suffered what is called a serious injury, the threshold for which, by the way, is extremely high. So we're not hearing about the huge iceberg that's under the water. We're hearing about the little tip of the iceberg that sticks out of the top that you can see. And it's very important to remember that even though you're hearing these stories about people losing their lives at the hands of the police, the scope of police brutality is like astronomically bigger than that. And so we can't allow for only the stories where someone has died, the worst possible outcome, to be the way that we understand and judge policing. We have to consider the broader harm of what the police do. And they will tell us, well, we should de-escalate. We should give the police training so that they know how to de-escalate. And what I would say to that is, all of us in this room have probably de-escalated a conflict in our lives. But the difference is that when we're called to do that, we don't have a gun. We don't have a taser. We don't have a baton or handcuffs, and we don't have the legal authority to take someone's life. So if we're agreeing that situations like these require de-escalation, then by definition for me, they do not require the police, they require a different kind of intervention, which we can't fund when we're giving them billions of our dollars and the decisions. Remember how Claudette said, that she made the decision to call that day, and you try to call 211. 211 doesn't have the resources, the police have the resources. And you still are going to get put through a 911 operator who 99.999% of the time is going to be like, let's just send the police to be safe anyway. Oh, you said it's a mental health call? Oh, you said it's a wellness check? Somebody's sick? Somebody can't breathe? Let's just send the police anyway, whatever. That's where our resources are going, that they can't respond to people in crisis, people in conflict in the way that we need them to. And so I do want to echo what has been said here about also, Pete mentioned body cameras. Every police force in this country is now asking for body cameras. They're demanding body cameras. Why would they want them? Why would they want body cameras when we know what police do? I'll tell you why they want them, because they're the ones who control the camera, not you. I'm a journalist. I haven't seen one significant piece of body camera footage from a cop in this country, because you cannot just request it and get it in your hand. You have to ask the people who are doing the killing and the beating and the arresting, would you please give us the video of the killing and the beating and arresting that you're doing? Surprise, they say no. So we are paying for this documentation to go in a vault somewhere where we can never access it. And that doesn't do anything for accountability for the police. I thought a camera was a good idea 10 years ago, and I've learned it's not a good idea unless you want to help the police legitimize themselves, but never show you what actually happens. So the answer that we need is In order to fund services like 211 that Claudette mentioned, in order to fund real crisis intervention that is non-violent, that, like I said, all of us know how to do, or we can be trained how to do if we don't know how to do it. In order to fund mental health services for people, in order to fund housing for people, because so many of these interactions with our police start at a point of somebody being outdoors, being able to not have a shelter to support and take care of themselves. In order to have the life-giving things that people need, we have to take away the life-destroying resources that the police are using against us. We have to divest from the police and reinvest in our communities. It's the only way to do it. And so this is what we continue fighting for. And we fight that at the local level because we all have local police forces. So wherever it is that you live, that is what the struggle is. In Ottawa here, there's a struggle with the Ottawa Police Service. So where we're from, there's Toronto, and there's Peel, and there's Durham. In other areas, people are struggling against the RCMP because it's the RCMP that comes in response to calls in their neighborhood. But wherever you are, the struggle is against local policing to take resources away from them and reinvest them back into our communities. We are going to take a break for about 5 minutes. We started late. I am trying to be respectful of everybody's time this evening. We wanted to have a section of this evening where we get you guys together and chatting. So just ask you for just a 5-minute break. The washrooms are down here to the left when you leave this room. Please join us back in 5 minutes. If you're on the live stream, we'll take a 5-minute break. I got the idea of working on my pleasure. Can I give you my contact information? I could reach out. Do you have anything? I have my card and getting to our go directly to the app for the app. And my email, you can, we are watching, you can also send an email, same last name, email. My social media, on my because I just went through really quickly because I obviously like you don't have a lot of time, but if you go on my Instagram, like the first videos, I don't have to get the entire thing. I think it's a really good one. It's like go back over it. Why?
Okay, just a reminder, we have cans for donations to the back, and the merch table on the side here. And a merch.
Yeah, it's awesome. That was off too. Yeah, it was like cutting in. Oh, there.
All right, I think that's making more sense. Hey everybody, so we have donations at the front. They're in like a Coca-Cola can, and I think it's Sprite. We also have pamphlets, like pamphlets, and we're selling merch at the table down here at the front.
They put the merch that 50% is going to the cost, like.
Oh, and
No, the cost. Obviously not your cost.
we are actually 50% of the merch sales are donated back to.
Devin, I just wanted to say hi. I'm Rachel. I've only been on Zoom, but thank you so much for amazing, and I really appreciate it.
Just perfect. We're gonna try and check one. Or you wanna? Did you bring something that you wanted me to? I wish it was like on or something. Yeah. You know what? Vanessa was gonna try to find her book, and she thought that it would have been a good idea. Thank you. You know what? Let me put it onto something. On a crossing. You know what I mean? Like maybe I can. The big supporter. He's so shocking. You know what I'm gonna do? Can I get a paperback of the book? Yeah. And I'll mail it to you. I will write in it, and I will mail it to you. Because that would be something nice, not just a piece of paper. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is that fair enough? That's fair. Oh, I got you. I appreciate that. I try calling you back. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Gonna ask everybody to return to your seats. Gonna ask everybody to return to your seats so that we can continue. We have volunteers here. I didn't mention it before the break. We have volunteers who are helping support this table here. We have some merchandise here. We have a couple of books about decolonial practice. We have some hats. We have some T-shirts. I also want to thank family members. You know, every time we do this, family members will often bring pictures of their loved ones who are no longer with us and place them on the table. So when you see those portraits sitting there on the table, that's what that is. And those are families who have decided to put those pictures there so that the memory of their loved ones can stay with us while we're having these conversations today. I want to move right along in the interest of time. The next person I'd like to ask to come up here is Vanessa Dorame. Vanessa, are you in here? Yeah. Vanessa is the co-founder of the Ottawa Black Diaspora Coalition, the Melanin Project, and a community advocate here in Ottawa. Please welcome Vanessa.
Okay, so hello everyone, thank you for having me. I first want to say that the reason why the Ottawa Black Diaspora Coalition was created was to support the Abdurrahman of the family. And the reason why we wanted to support them, even though they had their own coalition, is because there were certain things that this family was not able to speak to or to say due to the ongoing lawsuits that they had against the Ottawa Police Services. And so due to that fact, we wanted to support them by being to speak out to all of the things that we knew to be true and that was happening in our city, but folks just couldn't speak to. So one of those things is how violent the Ottawa Police Services is, and how violent policing as a system also is, and how inherently intrinsic this is tied to all of the colonialist and racist, not undertones, but very systematic racism that happens within policing is one thing that we specifically wanted to target. Especially how Ottawa Police Services moves in Ottawa and how their policing targets Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. So with that being said, it was 5 of us who founded this organization, and we worked with a series of volunteers to be able to speak to how these injustices take place. We also wanted to emphasize the importance of mutual aid and community care in creating this, just because there were a lot of conversations and we were talking to people about, like, yes, we understand that policing is violent, but that's just some police. That's not all police. Like, not all police are bad. Not all police do bad things. No, the system is bad and it's inherently bad. And even if you don't find bad cops, they work in a very bad system. And if you believe in those values and that you want to work there, then I'm sorry, you're a bad cop. So with that being said, we want to tie the connections that people are also conditioned in believing that this is the only type of response that folks can receive in this city, and that is absolutely not true. We have been conditioned as a society for a very long time to believe that this is the type of support that we need, when this is actually not support at all. Police are seen as responders to crime, right? They don't stop crime. Let's just be very clear. Police don't stop crime. They are seen to respond to it, and they can't even do that. So at the end of the day, there is no use for us having them here when even quote unquote that they speak to, they can't do the things that they say. And so this was our biggest focus. We wanted to educate the community on, I hate the word defund, so I'm going to say we want to educate the community on defunding and reallocation, but really on abolition. And I'm going to speak to why I say defund, not because that is something that we supported as an organization, but this was kind of the starting point when talking to folks about the strategy, that there were a lot of people who were questioning why we couldn't just go to defund first rather than abolition. Okay, let's slowly take away money from the police, because maybe if we slowly take away the money and redistribute it to communities, then we'll be able to see over time how this system, is it really like necessary, and then we'll be able to abolish it completely because we still kind of do need the police to be around for certain things. No. So when we were speaking to that, we're like, well, no. When we're talking about defunding the police, what that means for when we were speaking to it at the city level, the municipal level, was just around the fact that we did not want more money to go towards the Ottawa Police Services budget. But this did not mean that we were looking to not eradicate police as a system in its entirety, specifically here in Ottawa. We fought very hard to be able to speak to how every single year the budget increases in Ottawa and how much money OPS has. OPS will come to a city council meeting and they will speak to how much resources they do not have and how little money they don't have. And they will speak to the fact that, well, because we don't have this money, we're not able to respond to your calls and be there when you call us. No, they choose where they want to go. Let's be very clear. They choose which calls they want to answer, and they choose where they want to go. And most of the time, if they know that this call is going to be an opportunity for them to harass and inflict violence on our communities, they will jump right to it. But if it's a call where they are being called to be able to support our community, then you will not hear from them. Okay? So at the end of the day, that's the type of education work that we were doing with OBDC. And I just want to go back to the mutual aid part because I kind of glazed over that. But the mutual aid form of the Ottawa Black Diaspora Coalition came from the fact that we were seeing in our city that there were different types of organizations that did do the type of response work, and also we're speaking to the elimination of specific socioeconomic issues that we did want to see that would actually help and improve our communities. So, for example, there was like the Ottawa Services Medics. These folks helped with emergency responses. They helped support a lot of really great initiatives that were happening across the city. And these folks are trained to be able to respond to emergency situations. You don't hear about them as much, right? You don't hear about grassroots organizations such as this because this is actually an answer to a problem. But rather, as a society, municipal government specifically want you to believe that the only form of emergency response comes from the police and not from anything else. And so we were trying to also highlight that and bring education work towards making our community see that there are other forms of community response. And due to that work as well, we were also as an organization heavily policed. So there were members of our group who were often targeted at their homes by police. There were fake calls that police were responding to when going to specific people's homes that left us extremely vulnerable because of the type of work that we were doing. Nonetheless, we did what we had to do. But I think that what I really want to speak to when saying that is that this type of work is dangerous in the sense that you are interacting with police a lot of the time. But the reason why we did it is because of everything that you heard just before I got up here. I'm a mother myself, and my son is 15. I couldn't imagine a world without him. And being a part and seeing the pain that was inflicted on a lot of these families that you heard today, but folks, this is happening all across the world. There are millions of people who have experienced this. Like Desmond said, the most important thing that came out for me was that I wanted to fight this at a local level because it was overwhelming to think about how I could help at a national, more global level. That the best way for me to do this was to do it here in my own community at home. And there's a lot of conversations all the time about police violence in the U.S. and across the world. We have a real policing issue in Canada. We have a real policing issue in Ottawa. And the Ottawa Police Services are not your friends. They are not your community. I don't care if they come in fucking plain clothes at the park to greet your children. You better tell them to get the fuck away. Yes. Because they are not here to support and be with your children. The police do not give a fuck about you. And they do not care about holding anything but this system that was built off the backs of Black, brown, and Indigenous people. They only care about perpetuating violence because they only know violence. They know nothing else. This is all they know how to do, and they will do it exceptionally fucking well. So I don't want anyone to get confused about what this system of policing is, and specifically here in Ottawa, because people are always like, oh, well, Ottawa's such a small city, it's so lovely to be here. People are so quiet and quaint. The police are fucking horrible. And they are terrorizing us. And when you are brave enough to speak against that, when you're brave enough to speak against the injustice that happens against your own families, they will make you suffer. They will show you through the SIU how powerful they can be. They will show you through their own force, their unions, federally, how supported they are. So it takes us as a community, because we are the majority, to be able to come together and understand that we actually have the power and the voice to take this system down. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Is Christophe here? Hey, the next person I'm going to invite up is Christophe Lewis, who apparently not needing an introduction. Christophe is the founding acting co-executive director of Freedom We Must, and also a victim of police violence. Welcome, Christophe.
You're gonna mic me up? Oh, you don't need it. Just push the thing. That's definitely not gonna happen. Just hold down the camera. It pops up. Yeah, iPhone too.
Yeah, just be careful with it. If you want to move around a bit, you can put it in your pocket. Camera's right there though, so they can see on the live stream. Just stay in this area.
All right. Well. Yeah, because I mean I can't help. I'm 6'3". I can help that. Well, can I sit on a chair? I mean, and my mic is all messed up now. Like, no, you're gonna have to fix me up. Don't have me like this. Somebody's going for the low battery and bust it down.
True.
I don't know what's going on.
We need an iPhone charger up here so that the live stream can still hear everybody.
So can the camera be fixed? Because
No.
Out of frame, or I'm gonna have to back up or maybe move forward.
Want me to get you a chair? I'll get you a chair.
Okay, but I feel like I'm gonna be too late. Oh no, it's good. Somebody just fix it.
I'm adjusting the camera, but I shut everything off.
Wow, man, they have to bring out the team for me. Fix everything up. Hope I make y'all proud. Jeez. Wow. Maybe a little bit down more.
Down more? Yeah. Here, it's you.
Yeah, perfect. There you go.
Right here?
We're in business, yep.
All right.
Whew, okay, well, I guess I can start now. But how do I really follow what Vanessa just said up? Like, how do I follow that up? I feel like everything I have to say, I came here, okay, first of all, good evening. My name is Christophe Lewis. I'm the founder of the Freedom We Must Foundation. I'm also a person with many years of lived experience. I'm an entrepreneur. I founded the Freedom We Must Foundation roughly 2 years ago. And I'm going to tell you guys a number that holds a certain connection to me. The number is 925-184-D. Never forget that number. That's my FPS number, also known as CSE's fingerprint serial number. So I'm doing a life sentence, and a lot of time, the reason why I felt it was important for me to get my voice out here is because we hear from the victims, the families, we hear from all these mothers that are struggling, you know, with all the situations that happen in their life and, you know, their kids being murdered. Quite frankly, I'm not a journalist. I'm going to call it what it is. Their kids were murdered. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that could have been me on multiple occasions. 12 years old, my first time getting a black eye was from the police. I'm from a place called Regent Park, the first project in North America. If you know, you know, you know? So for me, I say this with a heavy heart. I was beat up by the police a lot growing up, and not because I was a bad kid, just because I fit the description. I'm going off the top right now. I have a whole list of stuff I'm going to talk about, but I'm just expressing myself because these are things that come natural to me in my heart, you know, and it's something that I can't make this shit up. Can't, you know what I mean? So, but I'm going to try to go back on the script though, just because. When I got invited here, I didn't really know what I was going to speak about because I'm like, you know what, it's going to be a heavy, heavy room. I've been in the room with some of these people here, and I must say, like, sometimes it takes a toll on me. Because people with lived experience and people that have been through traumatic situations, you understand that you unpack all of your trauma when you go and you speak for people that are studying you for research purposes and so on and so forth. And then you have to unpack all that shit. And then you have to repack that shit. You know what I'm saying? You have to take, now for me, on my drive home, I'm driving from Montreal today. You know, usually it's Toronto, Montreal, but I'm driving all the way back to Montreal. And when I finish unpacking all this trauma, I'm going to have to repack that shit on my way home in silence by myself. I want you guys to understand when you're researching, when you're studying people, when I say studying, it makes me think about just how CSE used to have me as, like, they used to refer to, in our papers, like, as convicts, you get this thing that it's like a correctional plan and all these different A4Ds and these different papers, and they refer to you as a subject. And for me, that was always dehumanizing. I always hated that. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? This is how we refer to everyone. I'm like, well, I'm not everyone in that, I guess. I'm not feeling that. I don't like to be referred to as a subject like I'm a lab rat. You know what I mean? So when you think of individuals that, when you guys are, you know, for all the students here that are researching and, you know, learning about this field, understand that these are real people living real lives that have been affected by real situations. When I witnessed all the mothers grieving for their murdered children, for me, it broke my heart because that could have been my mother. As I said, 12 years old, beat up by the police. That wasn't the first time. That wasn't the last time I got beat up by the police, but it was the first. I've also been beat up every time I got arrested, the police would beat me up. I never knew about a lifestyle where I could approach the police and they're kind to me. I never knew about a situation where I would get arrested kindly and nicely, just handcuffs put behind my back, and they say, oh, please sit down. And, you know, you see sometimes on TV when they're arresting people and they hold their head, and I'm like, where was that? I mean, my head would be used to slam into the door, and you know. So for me, it was a lot. My reality was a lot different than a lot of other people's, and different than other people that I see, you know, should happen for the, you know, on TV or whatever. You know, life is real, and for me, it wasn't like that. So I just want to mention that. Something that stuck out, I made some notes, some extra notes as I was sitting there. When we talk about marches, when people talk about, you know, after George Floyd, everyone came out and they're, you know, standing up for this, standing up for that. I want to say that it's my personal opinion that a lot of people during that time came out just because they wanted to get out of restrictions. I'm going to be real. Because I'm going to just give you an example. There was more people here early now. They're gone. Maybe they had an appointment. Hey, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. But I'm just saying this is how it happens in real life too. People show up when it's convenient. Oh yeah, you know what? I need some fresh air. Fuck these restrictions. I want to go outside. I'm gonna go march for George Floyd. I'm gonna march for Regis. You know, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, what happens? They disappear. And I'm tired of shit like that. So for me, I've been exploited since I was a child. And when I was in prison, I used to have academics exploiting me then too. Well, I want to get some of your story. I want to learn about your story. Google me. You'll find out a lot. My case was the first time in Canada's history someone was coerced into finding someone, well, jury members were coerced into finding someone guilty. My story is pretty deep. You know, like I've been through a lot of stuff. If you guys know anything about me, you'll know that I was assaulted by 30 plus guards in military institutions. One guard was convicted. I had to fight. How much years? Sometimes I can't even count. Hold on. This happened in 2011. So the guard just got convicted in 2023, I think it was, 2024? Yeah. Some of y'all came to the court date, so y'all know. You know what I mean? So just understand how long I had to fight, you know? 10, 12 years to finally get justice. I hate using that word justice. What is justice? What does that even look like? Man-made justice? What is that? Anyways. Today I heard some amazing examples about different ways we can deal with abolishing the police. I come into this as a person that have people on the right and I have people on the left. I don't play politics. I play realisticness. Like that's the word, if that's even the word. Realisticness. I like to be a realist. I like to be real about the realities. And unfortunately, the systems that we have been here for a long time. So it's hard to unravel that. Trauma is real. And like if you've been abused your whole life, you normalize that trauma. Sort of like we normalize policing. It's just the reality, it's just what it is. So if anybody thinks that, okay, we're gonna go outside and march and everything's gonna change tomorrow, you have a rude awakening coming your way. Let me tell you right now. And for me, I believe that we need to have different people in different sectors and people lobbying for different legislation to be changed. And we need to start at every different level. That's why I have friends that are in politics. I have friends that are lawyers. I have friends that people, some of my colleagues that are on the far left, like, oh, why do you talk to that person? Oh, I wouldn't talk to them. I wouldn't mess with them because they're like this and like that. Listen, let me tell you something. I'll show you something. I have tunnel vision. This is me. I hear things. I see no evil, hear no evil. I'm just like this. I'm zoned in on what I need to do. I'm locked in. I spent many of my years in prison. And the reason why I feel like it's important for me to voice my plight and my concern is because there's many people that have the same concerns and the same plight, but they can't voice their opinion. Sometimes they can't even read and write because they've been so oppressed for so many years. They didn't have opportunities because of their postal code, which is another thing I won't get into today, but because I talk about it a lot, called zoning. Sometimes people live in have a certain postal code, and they have to go to certain schools, and those schools are impoverished. They're over policed. They get lack of education, and they're. Listen, man. Let me take a break because I'm telling you, I could go in, but freedom the most.
Yeah.
Let me just say that. But I'm gonna jump around because I got a lot of stuff I want to say here. I don't think I'm gonna get through it all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump around a few things. As I said today, I heard some amazing examples of different ways we can, get rid of the police overall. When I look back at like ancient African and indigenous communities, I've been doing a little bit of studying about that. They used to basically police in a different way. They never used to use that term police, but they used to police in a different way. And the worst thing that would happen to someone if they did something in the community that was wrong, they'd be banished. And they'd have to go find another tribe. They wouldn't be shot down. They wouldn't be beat down with what is the fuck you call it, police batons and gun butt with listen, I was gun butt with a SWAT shotgun when I was arrested when I was 18 years old. Pissed my pants. You know what I'm saying? Woke up like, trust me. Some people just don't know the harsh realities of what it's like to grow up in the inner city as an impoverished youth and know that the realities are. Because you guys see, oh, they're naked bad choice. Oh, they're selling drugs. Well, if you ain't got food to eat, what are you supposed to do? Look at everyone else eating, everyone else driving their big cars, and you're supposed to sit around and just twiddle your thumbs? Listen, I got it how I had to get it. I just didn't have representation to teach me certain things. And that's why someone like me, who's doing a life sentence, I come out, I'm not drug dealer no more. I used to run essentially a Fortune 500 company as a drug dealer. Now I run a Fortune 500 company as a founder of a nonprofit and of an investment company. And trust me, my case management team don't like it. I'll tell you, because I make way more money than them. They don't like it, and I hold the system to account. So I believe firmly, and I'm way off the script. I believe firmly that, and listen, right now I have a PO. She's not like threatening me. And the fact that that's the standard, that's crazy to me. Some of my people are here. They hear my complaints all the time, or not even my complaints because they're valid, they're real situations, but they hear the situations I'm going through and they're like, oh my God, how could I navigate life? I could never navigate life like that. But it's my reality. And I keep trying to explain why that's important for me to be up here. It's because I want to give the opinion, what I say. I want to give the perspective, thank you. You can finish my words now, I'm talking to you so much. I want to give the perspective of someone that's doing a life sentence, serving a life sentence, and someone that's been criminalized, because a lot of time what happens is a double whammy, like, it's like, okay, he's a murderer, he's a this, he's a that. So then I get double villainized. So then I should never ever voice any concerns anymore because, oh, you're a scum of the earth. You don't have a right. But I don't remember the judge sentencing me to no rights anymore. The judge didn't say that. He did say life sentence, but he didn't say you have no more rights no more. He didn't say that. So why should I be treated as less than? One thing I did when I was incarcerated, I studied the law. I read books, but I mostly studied the law because we have to learn to use the law against those that created them because they're no smarter than us. The only difference is that they're really clever because they're able to implement the laws in such a way that it's really hard for us to unravel ourselves because we're caught up in that spiral. And once you call it, I tell the youth all the time that I mentor. I mentor youth, at-risk youth in the Montreal carceral system, so I go into the youth jail and I talk to them and spread my story. And fun fact, I'll just say this. Well, I say to them that, listen, it's easy to get caught up in the system and hard to get out, but lost my thought. So much going on there. I'm sorry. But I really where to go with this? So I try to explain to the youth that, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the system and it's hard to get out. So they have to be mindful of what they do in their life. And for me, it was circumstances that led to certain things. And if I could do it all over again, obviously I would. I would just choose a different route, but I didn't have examples of people that I could look up to that were upstanding citizens. My mom, yes, but I mean, my mom's in the house. You know what it's like to be a parent. I'm a parent of a 21-year-old daughter, turning 22 in a couple weeks, and for me, it's like it's hard for her to listen to me because she doesn't understand. She thinks that I'm like a dinosaur. I don't know anything, right? So it's the same thing for me when I was growing up. I didn't feel like I could explain things to my mom or she would understand because she just saw life different, than I saw it. I don't know where I was going. I really go to a strong point and I lost my train of thought. But the thing is that I really want people to know that people that face incarceration or people that get locked up, it doesn't always equate to they're bad people. Sometimes you make bad decisions because of your circumstances. And I feel like it's imperative that I voice this. And I speak for those people that are voiceless. Because honestly, if I didn't get a chance, it's only by the grace of God. I'm a God-fearing man, so it's only by the grace of God while I'm standing here. Because I'm out here doing amazing things in the community. I never say that about myself. My people always say that, but I hear it so much now. I'm gonna own it and say, you know what, I am. I'm out here doing amazing things, and I wouldn't have been given that opportunity if I kept on being villainized. And it's too early. It's okay. You need to stay inside. I know people that have got life 10 sentences that did 32 years, 36 years, 25 years because they didn't want to conform to a oppressive system. Listen, y'all, there's so much I could say, and you know, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to come up here and speak because I feel like you guys need to hear all different sides of the spectrum to understand that we can work together to make a better system, but we have to do the training. We have to learn how to love each other, care about each other, and I'm gonna be frank, a lot of us can't even organize action, much less to organize a force that's gonna be able to govern ourselves. So let's start at some level before we get to, don't try to jump before you could crawl. All I'm saying is that we have the tools. We have the academics, the backing. We just need to get the funding. We need to get the support. And, geez, look at this. This is far. I don't know how we're trying to get through all this.
You can put it online
I'll rest there. Thank you guys very much. Freedom of us. There are a lot of votes for you, and I've been following you still since I was in prison. Here, this is my government.
I want to just really build off something that Christophe said really quickly, which was, why is it that people decide to come out to events like this? Why do they come? And it is possible that sometimes people come because, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And they're like, this is a good opportunity for me to get outside and avoid some of these rules that have been holding me here. That's possible. It might even be possible that sometimes people are like, oh, I heard my friends are going and it sounds like it's going to be a big crowd. It sounds like it's the thing to do right now. I should go too. And maybe we're saying that because we're like, what is that person's actual long-term commitment to the things that are being demonstrated about if they just decided to come along for the ride for that one afternoon? And what I would say is that for those of us who are trying to build something, it doesn't matter why people come out. We have an opportunity when they do come out. I don't care why people come to the demonstration. I don't care what makes somebody sign a petition for the first time or what makes them come to a rally for the first time. I do not care if they're doing it for the goodness of their heart or because they think that it's cool or because they want to be with their friends. What I care about is that when they come out, we give them a reason to come back again. And that's on those of us who are trying to do this work. So in that spirit, and I should have done this at the beginning, and I'm going to do it now because of Christophe's example, I'm going to ask one of our volunteers if they can start a contact sheet. I did this at the last event we were at, and we're going to do it here. Because you all need to know that this is run through the Justice for Anthony House Foundation, and you need to know how to get in touch with that organization, and they need to know in the future how to get in touch with you. This is an incredible turnout for a Saturday afternoon when you guys could have been doing anything else. And the next time we do something like this, we want it to be even bigger. So we want you to stay in touch with this organization so that we can continue doing these things together. So that when there are actual calls to action, when somebody needs a letter writing campaign done, when someone needs fundraising done, when somebody needs people like Christoph was just talking about to come show up to court for support for them, that we could actually do this, that we're not actually just coming out on a nice Saturday afternoon to have a bite to eat and then be like, okay, thanks very much. And we're actually building something. Okay? So the sign-up sheet is going around. Make sure you put your information on there so that we can stay in touch with you. I would like to ask Kayla Haggerty to come up next. Kayla here? There you are. Kayla is a member of, Kayla is the founder of the Solidarity Alliance of People Who Use Drugs and a victim of police violence. Welcome.
No? Wow, that's awesome.
I guess I was speaking up here. Actually, funny story. Christoph, you were in prison with my dad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm really maximum security together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That must have been fun. Yeah, thank you guys for being here today, for showing up, standing together, and yeah, refusing to stay silent in the face of all this injustice that we're all facing. But I wanted to start by acknowledging the direct violence that policing inflicts on people who use drugs. The criminalization of drug use doesn't save lives, it takes them. It rips people from their communities, from their families, pushes drug use further into the shadows, and it fuels the overdose crisis. Every time a safe consumption site or somebody's home is raided, every time harm reduction workers are surveilled, every time someone is arrested for simply trying to survive, the system reinforces what we already know, that the police do not keep us safe, that our communities do, our compassion does, harm reduction does. Despite personal to me, my dad, Ian, was incarcerated for 8 consecutive years, including some time spent in the SHU, which is Solidarity, which is now illegal. When he was finally released, the scars of institutionalization followed him. He struggled to find his footing in a world where he was offered no support, only surveillance. And on May 3rd, 2020, during the peak of COVID, my dad died of a drug overdose. But I didn't just lose my dad when he died. I lost him a long time before that. I lost him to incarceration when I was still a child. He went into prison as one person and came out as another. His mental health was shattered by isolation and institutionalization because the system doesn't rehabilitate, it punishes. It doesn't offer care, it criminalizes. There's no safety net, no support for trauma, no path forward. And his death wasn't just a result of a toxic drug supply. It was the direct result of a system that treats addiction like a crime instead of a health issue. A system that locks people away instead of lifting them up. And growing up with a parent behind bars is the trauma that shapes you. It teaches you that the people that you love can disappear overnight. It forces you to navigate a world where the people in power, the people meant to keep you safe, the police, the courts, the prisons, are not going to protect you, but they're going to control you. That kind of institutional violence doesn't end when the prison doors open and people are let free. It lingers in the body, in the mind, in the family. It passes from generation to generation like a shadow, called generational trauma, and we carry it with us every day. What I want to make clear tonight is this: the police did not save my dad. They punished him. The system did not protect me as a child. It made me afraid. It made me volatile. It put me in the same cage he was in this cycle of violence, of incarceration, of state control. It has to end. We need to stop funding the police. That sentence is not spelled properly. Sorry. We need to stop funding the police trauma, and start funding the solutions that actually save lives. Yeah. We need to reinvest in harm reduction, in mental health care, in community-based support. We need safe consumption sites, housing first programs, and trauma-informed treatment, not just handcuffs and more prison cells. Because safety doesn't come from more police, it comes from community, it comes from care, it comes from radical compassion. Yeah, I don't know. I had a bunch more to say, but I don't think I'm going to say that because I'm shy. But let's just keep showing up for each other, for our communities, and for the justice that we all deserve. And yeah, learn to forgive. Learn to say you're sorry and we should be sorry, and try to, yeah, you know, have each other's backs. Fuck this shit hard. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Kayla. We appreciate you. Tyler, I'm calling you next. I had the pleasure of meeting Tyler just a short while ago at an event like this that we did in Toronto. Tyler is a victim of police violence, a survivor of violence by the Toronto Police Service. I'd like to welcome him to come share with you this evening.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tyler, or that's my colonialized name. My native name is Songay Bukla, which means strong standing there. July 23rd, 2024, I was shot by the cops twice, once shattering my arm, another penetrated my stomach and caused me to have parts of my bowel removed. I have parts of my bone removed. And the story that kind of leads up to that is kind of intermingled with a lot of stories today, like Anthony's story, and I forgot the girl's name that just spoke before me, but having a parent that was stuck in the system and having that affect me. I grew up in foster care. I spent many years in foster care, in fact, my whole life, and it led to mental unstableness for me. And my mother, she struggled with drug addiction, and oh, now you got me.
Yeah.
My mother struggled with drug addiction, and it touches me to hear other people speak about harm reduction. It's the work I do now. Since the shooting, I went back into nursing to be the mental health worker that people need, the nurse that can understand where someone's coming from, the nurse that can see someone tied to a bed and understand what they're going through, and maybe be that caring ear that listen and provide support. It wasn't always so easy for me. And like I said, I grew up in foster care, and it led to a depression that I couldn't quite put my finger on for many, many years. And that's what led up to the shooting that day, was my depression getting the best of me. I decided I was going to end my life that day, and I took a knife and I hurt myself. And I kind of came to in the moment after, luckily, all the knives in my house are dull, so thank God for that. I went outside and I couldn't find my phone. It was in my pocket in a different pair of pants. I would have called the ambulance. I went outside to get someone to call for help because I thought I had injured myself substantially, to the point where I only had minutes to live, is what I thought, based on where I cut myself. I reached out to a lady, and she saw the knife in my hand. She called 911 and said there's a guy with a knife running around. And the police came. When the police came, they, in no less than 30 seconds, shot me. I thought to myself that day that I could get the police to kill me, and they obliged, and but to my dismay, well, it was to my dismay at the time, I did wake up, but it was a gift that I was given. I was given a gift as the person who gets to survive, the person who gets to talk, the person that gets to be a voice for Claudette and the other mother that was up here today that lost their children, that I could have done that to my mom. And it's not hearing the pain in their voices, it's not the pain that I want to inflict on my family. And it started a whole new outlook on life. This whole event, the protests that were held while I was in hospital, seeing all those people gather together and be a movement and have my back and raise over $20,000 for my lawyer, which I was able to get the best lawyer in the city. And they're working on my case now, but I woke up and I was charged with assault on a police officer too, and I was chained to a bed. I unfortunately was chained to the bed until I made bail. I am still under bail, and this bail is affecting my future. I was in nursing, like I told you. I tried to pick myself up and to keep going and be the nurse that I wanted to see in the healthcare field. My mom, after recently having a stroke, she doesn't get the care she always needs, and people are not very friendly to her because, like I said, she grew up in the penitentiaries and in the system, in the foster care system, and she doesn't get the care she deserves because she's a little bit rough around the edges. And I wanted to be that care for her, so I went into school and I decided that I wasn't going to let this situation bring me down, that I wasn't going to let it stop me from moving forward, that I was going to bounce back and be strong and have post-traumatic growth is what my psychiatrist called it. He said he's never seen post-traumatic growth like he's seen for me, and I was able to make the honor roll my first semester on nursing. I told myself I wasn't going to cry, but this is an emotionally charged event, and they get the best of you, but do my best. Thank you. After being on the honor roll, in the second semester was my clinical placement. A part of my clinical placement, I had to do a vulnerable sector check. The charges that I received on July 23rd popped up on the vulnerable sector check, and they're currently barring me from moving forward the third semester. So these charges might not allow me to reach my dreams. And I think that's unfair. The SIE lied. They said that the police told me to put down the weapon. They told me that they backed up, but it all happened within 30 seconds. My move towards the police officer and then shooting me. They didn't give me any warning. And the SIU constantly clears these people that do wrong. And it's police policing police. There's police policing police. And it's not feasible. You're never going to get justice like that. You're never going to get justice with police policing the police. There has to be some sort of outside force. There has to be some sort of community engagement, some sort of community justice that can lead to something substantial for all these families. I'm lucky I made it out alive. But some families, they don't have their kids anymore, and I want to be a voice for that. And I try my best to keep moving forward, but dark sometimes, not knowing if I can continue nursing, and I've made backup plans, I've applied for jobs. But I find it's unfair that I get shot and I get criminalized as well. And it's awful. It's awful that I have to deal with this. And I just came up to share my story and share my hope with you guys, that I still hope that things will get better. And I hope that the charges turn out in my favor and I can pursue a civil lawsuit and get the justice that I think I deserve. But thank you guys for listening.
There aren't a lot of words for the levels of courage that I think all of you have heard this evening and afternoon from people who have really gone through some dark times and are somehow still here, not just talking about it, but trying to fight back and trying to make community solutions that will prevent these kinds of stories from being told again in the future. Before we go, because we are 25 minutes over time from where we wanted to be today, it's a long afternoon and evening, I want to summarize. I want to summarize from all of you what you have heard during this session. Where's that sign-up sheet, by the way? Where is it at? Good. Keep it going. If you haven't signed the sign-up sheet, don't leave until you do. What have you heard today about the things that police are doing in our communities that are causing harm? What have you heard today? Tell me. You can shout it out at me. You can put your hand up. Violence, murder, surveillance, murder, cover up. We've heard about police covering up the crimes that they engage in their communities. What else? Home invasion. The police call it a no-knock raid, but I don't think that there's a different word for it than a home invasion. That's absolutely what it is. I heard something over here. False accusations against people in our community, often in order to cover up for their own actions or just to explain why they are wasting our time and our resources. No oversight. No oversight. We've heard about the fact that there's a complete lack of police oversight and that the oversight that exists. We've heard about the SIU so many times now. What does SIU stand for? Special Investigations Unit. I want to tell you guys something really quick, actually, that you might not know. The reason that there's a Special Investigations Unit in Ontario is because during the 1980s, the police were killing Black people and they were getting away with it. And then something crazy happened. The police killed a Black man named Lester Donaldson in his rooming house in 1988. Lester Donaldson was a Black man, 44 years old, with schizophrenia in a rooming house. And multiple police officers went into his room. They stayed there for an excessive amount of time for just going into somebody's apartment when there was no immediate danger or anything like that. And one of them ended up shooting Lester Donaldson. Well, for the first time in the history of the province of Ontario, that police officer was charged. And I believe that that police officer was charged because the Black community were relentless in saying, we are not going to keep having a situation where the police police themselves, as Tyler was just saying. The Black community demanded that we have something else, and it was the creation of the SIU that followed that. But 35 years later, after you all have heard the stories you've heard today and many other stories, I'm sure you would agree that this is not what the Black community fought for in the 1980s, what we were given. This organization that is full of former police officers, that clears the vast majority of police officers, and which, by the way, remember when I was talking earlier, and I was saying that death is the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much underneath the surface that is not dying that the police are still engaged in? That's the same thing with the Special Investigations Unit. If the police kick you when they come to a call, that SIU does not investigate that. If the police punch you in your face when they come to a call, if they handcuff you violently and you bleed, the SIU does not investigate that. The threshold for SIU investigations is extremely high, meaning that the majority of even what we call police brutality or police violence doesn't get investigated by that body. This is not what Black people were fighting for in the 1980s when we said we wanted better oversight. So absolutely there's a lack of oversight. What have we heard tonight that we need instead of this kind of violent, unaccountable policing? What have we heard that we need instead? Come on, you can yell it out.
Abolition.
We need abolition.
Accountability.
Accountability. What's that? Transformative justice. We've heard about defunding the police, 100%. What else?
Proper training.
Proper training, well, we've heard about that as well. We've heard about the idea that whoever is coming to these situations where people are in danger or people need care, they actually need to know how to handle people in mental health crisis. They need to know how to support people, to de-escalate situations. By the way, in our ideal future where there's no police, people are still going to have altercations. There's still going to be violence. There's still going to be domestic abuse. We're still going to, but like, one thing that I remember happening during COVID, after all of these police killings were being so well publicized, is I started talking to my neighbors. Remember when Claudette said earlier that she would rather call her neighbor than call the police? That's not a fantasy. That's not just a nice idea that, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if we lived in that world? And I'm going to tell you guys why that's not a fantasy, okay? Somebody, I think it was Vanessa that said that the police are basically responding to crime, they're not stopping crime, right? Okay, so maybe some of you have experienced this before. When you actually really need emergency services, they're often very slow to come, if they come at all. Anybody in this room been robbed before? What happened when you called the police? Anybody in this room been assaulted before? Were the police there in 3 minutes? How do we help you? In many cases, they don't come at all. They don't come at all. And the reason I'm saying this to you is because the next time you have this idea in your head or you hear someone laughing at the idea that community could replace police, think about all the calls that they just never fucking respond to in the first place. So when I started talking to my neighbors during the pandemic, I had a list on my wall. Maybe the first person's not going to answer my call. Maybe they're at work. Maybe they're visiting their mom on the other side of the city. Maybe they're not even in the country. But if I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that are in my local area, not the police, coming from wherever, answering a call because a Black person was looking too free walking down the street. If I have people in my own community who care about me, and I have a list on my wall, somebody's going to answer that call. And they are damn sure not coming to my house with a gun. They are damn sure not coming there to interrogate me about why I called them. These are real things that people do in their communities. They're not a fantasy. And they are a much more viable alternative for so many of us than just calling the cops. We don't want to call the cops if we don't have to. We want to put them out of a job. So we need to know how to respond. You know what we're going to do one of these times when we have one of these kind of gatherings? I'll tell you guys, I don't want to get into story time because I already told you got to go. I just want to tell you a quick story about in 2020, we had like a couple thousand people in Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto for a rally about defunding the police. And the momentum at that time was just so strong, and so many people were talking about this. And they all came outside into this big rally at Nathan Phillips Square. And this was very well advertised. So people knew we were going to be there. And some people came and they set up little booths without even telling us that they were going to do it. One of the booths that people set up was a naloxone training booth. And that person sat there for 3 hours in the sun, and they trained people, strangers, how to use, I saw one here, how to use a naloxone kit. What if somebody in your community is overdosing? What if you're on the bus and somebody is overdosing? How do you actually use this? What is this? How do you help people? They just came without permission from any of the organizers because they knew that thousands of people who were interested in alternatives policing were going to be there, and they set up their table and they educated people. Wow. That's the world that I want to live in. When we gather like this in the future, these are the kind of things that I think we can think about doing. We're not in a position of helplessness. We have lots of knowledge in our communities. We have lots of training and support and experience. I'm a harm reduction from the frontline worker myself. Worked in shelters, worked in drop-in centers. I lived on the street for the better part of 2 years myself. We have the skills to support and take care of one another, and we can never, ever, ever forget that. So you can ask the question.
So I hear about defunding the police a lot.
Yes.
But what happens when it is actually a violent situation?
That's a good question.
Calling your neighbors and guy who's going off with a weapon. What happens then?
So, okay. So did you guys all hear the question? Yes. The question was, what if there is really a violent situation that might be beyond our control, that might have weapons that we don't have? What do we actually do in that case? And I'm going to tell you, the problem with being a human being is that we've been trying to answer that question for about 100,000 years. And none of us have the answer to that question. I don't have the answer to that question. All I can tell you is that that isn't 99.9999999% of the situation. We are taught, actually, that because we can't answer that question of the 0.00001%, that we don't have any answers, and we have to be consigned to this police state because we can't figure out that answer to that question. But I'll tell you what, I have been a surety, a criminal surety for people who were on bail, who had to promise to meet certain conditions in order to stay out of jail pending their trial, right? And one of the people that I did this for put me in one of these situations that you're talking about because he decided to get violent with his partner. And I am ashamed, but I called the police. And the reason I called the police, there are two reasons. One was I told the court that I would call the police if anything happened that I couldn't manage. But the second reason I called the police was because I was very scared for my friend's partner and how safe she was going to be. And I was scared, like you're saying, that I didn't have the ability to find where he was in that moment and stop him from hurting her. And he and I managed to stay friends, but you can probably guess he wasn't really happy that I called the police on him. Now, I was in a really tough spot, but what I told him after we had a conversation was, if you're upset that I called the police, I understand. But if you ever put me in that situation again, I'm going to find 5, 6, 10 people, and we're going to come and we're going to beat the shit out of you ourselves. If you don't want me to call the police. I don't want to be in situations like that in my community, but honestly, it's these kinds of really difficult questions that give rise to the police. And I'm saying this as a man, knowing that men know men, are friends with men, support men who put women in these situations, and we don't talk about it, and we don't say anything, and then we don't want the boys with the guns to come either. But what are we actually doing in our communities to actually protect people who are being abused and are being marginalized like this? We're not doing a lot, but then we don't want the police to be involved either. So we have a lot of work to do as a community before we get to the point where none of these things are happening. But that's how I feel about prison too. If somebody goes on a mass murdering spree, yeah, I don't like jail. You kind of have to separate somebody from the public, though, who's doing that kind of thing where they are taking lives and endangering people's lives. So I might not have the long-term answer for the Port-a-Peak shooter who takes out 22 people. That doesn't mean 99% of people should be in jail, though. And I'm not going to concede the 99 for these extreme outlier cases because that's their logic. That's not our logic. So that's what I would say to you is that, like, we're all actually trying to figure out how to have communities free of violence, and we don't have all the answers today. But the vast majority of our people should not be arrested, should not be being put in jail. Our children should not be being taken away from us by the state when the number one reason they take our kids away is because of poverty, not because of any other reason. There are solutions that are available to us, and then we could spend more time working on these really much harder questions that we don't have an answer to. That's what I would say. I need to let you guys get out of this room. Where's the sign-up sheet at? It's over there. Who hasn't signed the sign-up sheet yet? Some of you over here. So that's where it needs to go to. I would like to thank the Justice for Anthony House Foundation for making this event possible. Nora, thank you. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for inviting me to come here and do this work today. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your family and your community. Thank you to all of the volunteers who sold stuff at the table. I think people are still going to be here at the exit. Thank you to all the hands that prepared and served the food today. Thank you very much to all the organizations who are represented in different ways of people here. And thank you especially to every person who came up here and spoke, who shared their stories, who shared their experiences today, and who were vulnerable enough to come before you in the hopes that we can actually change something. I would like to invite everybody to stay involved, and that list that we were just sending around and collecting will hopefully be put to good use in the future to let you know different things that are going on that you can support. And I hope I'll see you again. Get home safely, and thank you very, very much.
Nobody leaves yet. Thank you. Okay, on behalf of all of us and the mothers that came up and spoke today, I want to thank each and every one of you guys. We are so appreciative that you guys came. You listened to us thoroughly. I truly hope that you guys will stick with us because this is not the only time we're going to be out here. We're going to be doing this a lot more. So I want you guys to support us. It would be greatly appreciated. God bless you all, and thank you so much.